Welcome to the Parenting Roundabout Speed Round, where we answer a quick question every Wednesday through Friday to keep our podcasting fun going all week long. Today we have a special speed round guest who years ago at the beginning of our podcast days was a frequent guest on the podcast. And now she has written a book. Katherine Lewis, can you please tell us about your book? And then we'll get into a little bit of a discussion about some of the most exciting parts of it.
Well, I'm just thrilled to be here, Katherine, and reconnect with you and the podcast. So my book is The Good News About Bad Behavior, Why Kids Are Less Disciplined Than Ever and What to Do About It. And the title kind of sums it up, that children are just not doing what we tell them. And I spent 5 years trying to understand why and looking at both the research and the science behind it, and also some of the really exciting and innovative models of positive discipline that are out there in schools and homes, and what they share in common, and how we parents and teachers can implement them ourselves.
Great. So one of the most interesting angles I think you're taking is trying to reframe, when we see a child, what we would call misbehaving, having a tantrum, talking back, whatever it is, you're saying that what we need to do is not see that child as disobedient, but as needing help from a parent or a teacher.
Right. It was a really powerful mindset shift for me when I first started this research, nearly 6 years ago. And I realized that when I was growing up, there would be maybe one or two kids in the class acting out or disruptive. And so we sort of thought of them as the bad kids. But nowadays, really 1 in 2 children will have something going on, whether that's a disobedience or actual anxiety disorder, some kind of attention issue, or other problem with regulation. So managing their own behavior, emotions, or thoughts. So it's not just the 1 kid or 2 kids who are acting out. It's really half of the children who just simply cannot manage what's going on inside their own bodies or their minds. And so they need our support to do that, as opposed to somehow, if only they were motivated more strongly, then they would behave. It's not about getting the kids to want to behave. No kid wakes up in the morning thinking, oh, I'm going to disappoint my teachers and parents all day long. They really just can't. And so that was the first really important click for me to understand that children that we see misbehaving are not doing it on purpose.
So one of the big things that you found is a way to try to help these kids is, and probably I'm guessing all kids, not just kids who are struggling with this, is what you call the apprenticeship model. So can you tell us about that?
Right. So as I was doing my research and looking at these very successful models of discipline that don't just rely on rewards or punishments, that are not trying to get the kids to care more, but really looking at how do you teach self-regulation, they all had these 3 common threads, which I pulled together in what I call the apprenticeship model. And that is, they all rely on connecting with the child. So the relationship between the parent and child, or the teacher and the child, is fundamental in helping lay the foundation for self-control. The second is communication. And that's really just talking with the child, getting their perspective on what's going on, because we don't always know what the problem is. And I think as adults, we are very experienced and we think, oh, I see that kid doing this, they want X. But sometimes it's something you don't even know. And then the third of the 3 factors that I found in all these discipline models is capability building. So looking at the child as needing more skills, and whether that's a practical, social emotional skill, like managing a transition between home and school, or dealing with social situations where you have this impulse to push another kid when you don't get your way. Or maybe it's a life skill that just builds their confidence and their sense of themselves as a contributing member of your family. So kids who are helping to make the family dinner, or who are taking care of pets, or packing their own lunch. Well, it may seem like this onerous chore to us as adults, to a 5 or 6 or 10-year-old, that's actually a way to prove that they really matter and that they belong in the family. And it gives them, sort of fills their bucket and makes them much more likely to cooperate with all the other things that we adults need them to do in the day.
So the apprenticeship is the adult kind of modeling for the child some of the behaviors that they're looking for, and also helping the child develop those skills.
Right. It's really about recognizing that children's executive function, which is the ability to plan, problem solve, manage their emotions, that does not fully develop until truly in their 20s. So we are acting as their exterior executive function for a long time, but we only want to do as much as is needed. Otherwise, they'll never develop it. So we need to kind of always be gauging, okay, how much more independence can my child handle? How much more responsibility can they take? And moving that boundary bigger and bigger and bigger so that they are always challenged to do more and be more capable. Eventually, when they leave our home at 18 or 22, they can do it on their own. And often we're either trying to control too much, and so they never develop it on their own, or we simply don't believe that they can do it. They can't remember their belongings. They can't handle that hard test. They can't experience the challenge of maybe struggling and failing, and we want to swoop in and rescue them. But really what we're trying to do is give them the support they need only as long as they need it, and give them that extra challenge to develop their own planning, problem solving, and sense of capability.
Wow, exciting stuff. I think this sounds really interesting, and I hope everyone will go out and check out Katherine's book to learn more, because there's tons more in the book about these topics and how these strategies work at home and at school. So thank you so much, Katherine, for coming in to talk to us today. That's it for today's speed round. We're going to come back tomorrow with another question, and please visit parentingroundabout.com for all our group chats and other weekly episodes. Hey, before you speed off from this speed round, please consider listening to all our podcast episodes, short and long, on the Radio Public app. It costs you nothing, and we get a little change for every listen. Thanks for the support.